Hello, thanks for joining me in the shed again. This is going to be part two of taking the engine out of this and putting it in that. I could really use your help, so thanks for dropping by. Had a big week at work and played cricket this afternoon, so it's quite late, but I really need to get some work done here, and depression being what it is, I'm not really feeling super motivated, but we're going to get some work done anyway, and I'm not even in frame. Hang on, let me get her ready. Hi, it's me. Sorry, it's not someone more interesting. So if I remember correctly, most of the work today is going to be under the car, which is a place where old fat guys least enjoy being. So we'll get cracking on that. Actually, I'll take you down there. In case you're one of the weird people who's working on their own 206 in their own garage, which I highly doubt, but it's entirely possible. We'll sort of go through what's going on down here. So, exhaust clamps up in a few places. This one here is the easiest to get to. Now, the bolt itself, at least in Australia, we don't have things like rust, isn't too bad. It'll come undone without too much drama. So, that's going to be one challenge. Then next of all is the shifter. So two different styles of shifters in these: the 138 horsepower version, which is the regular GTI, and a couple of CCs have a linkage system. The 180 has a cable system for the shifter, and it's actually up under this heat shield. So we have to drop the entire exhaust, pull this heat shield out, undo the shifter from the top, drop it down, get it out. Again, not a fun thing to do. This whole exhaust is probably going to come out anyway. So normally what I do with these is leave this big central muffler in, and then I cut the exhaust back there on that joint, and I flip the joint around. So instead of it darting back that way, it actually goes back out that way in front of the front tire. I've done that a few times at work. So you just cut that piece there, and then you cut it back where that shitty loopy thing is, and then you flip it around, and it fires out there almost exactly. It's not a bad system. However, obviously this exhaust here is trash, so I'm probably just going to ditch the whole thing. My neighbor has an exhaust shop, and he's very, very good at building like high-end race gear, so I'm probably going to get his help, and we're probably going to do a custom header. I do have a stainless steel header that I bought off a guy who was selling it cheap, who I thought for shits and grins I'd buy it off him. Comes with a decat pipe and a stainless steel header and flange. So the original idea was to cut the flange off and just use it. The header design is terrible. The headers on this 180 are actually really well designed, and any screwing around with it's going to actually lose power unless you can tune it out or focus it more for one specific thing. So obviously this car designed as a road car, it wants torque throughout the power range, or throughout the rev range. I'm looking more for specifically 4,000 to 6,000 RPM torque and power, so I can sort of tune the exhaust a little bit better than what it is. Get rid of this cat, and just, high flow race muffler. So I might just scrap this exhaust and do that. So let's jump up in the car, because it's fractionally more pleasant in there, fractionally less spider webs, and way, way more dark because it's night time, and it often is at night. Where's my light? So that hairy piece of shit up there is the obviously the bottom of the steering shaft. So you undo the bolt with the yellow nut on it there, and then that you can see that pin there. That's basically what's holding that flange onto the steering shaft. So you undo the yellow nut and flip that thing up, and then the steering rack just drops out. All right, so a few things have happened while you've been gone. First of all, I realised it was raining and the cricket kit was getting wet, so I've put that away. Secondly, I realised that I've been having a shocking night with naming things, so go through and point out all the things that I've called the wrong name in my haste to try and, I don't know, explain something while I'm doing another thing. And the final thing I've done is I've managed to cram my fat ass under this car. So, since I don't feel like getting in and out from under here 6 times, I've bought a shifter with. We're going to crack this. Of course, it's a fraction too. Well, cracked it loose, but I didn't get it properly, so. But anyway, at least I know now that it's that size. So we'll go and get the right spanner and do it properly. Maybe I'll have another go at this and see what happens. This is, of course, like the world's cheapest shifter as well, because I'm the world's cheapest guy. Oh, there we go. Now I got it. Look, I didn't even need to get out. So, if you live in a part of the world that rusts, you can be super envious of me right now. So as you can see, like, it doesn't just want to spread super easy. Like, you can get it open a little tiny bit, but you actually need to get it like a lot open to get it, this flange out of it. It's one of the less fun jobs on a Peugeot. There's quite a few of them, but this is one. So I'm going to struggle with this for a few minutes. I'll bring you back in when it's done. All right, so I actually got distracted by some aftermarket audio over here. Got excited by a Boston crossover hidden in this door here. However, the tweeter and driver have long since disappeared and been replaced by this thing here, which I don't even know if you call it an aftermarket speaker. What's this got to do with removing the steering linkage? Nothing, but I didn't put the windows down in this thing before I disconnected the battery, so I had to pull it apart and hot wire it. And I just thought, well, I'll bring you in because that's a bit of a tech tip for you today. So you notice the bucket of old wiring I put over there for my last car, and I hang on to things like that, not because I'm a hoarder, although I am. But things like this can come in really, really handy. Like these pins, the factory pins, you can plug them into connectors like that and just leave pigtails out there for hot wiring. Now the door springs in this door are completely had it, so door doesn't stay open. Fantastic. If you've got a Peugeot and you're planning on working on it, 2 things I recommend. These are Torx. I've got H-Torx because every now and then you'll come across a H-Torx, and H-Torx and Torx are the same thing. H just means it has a hole in it. So I got a H-Torx set which goes all the way from the T10 up to T50, which is the bolt in the steering wheel, and you need a T50 to get that out. I also have a set of E-Torx, which is external Torx, which is basically the counterpart to this. Before you start work on a Peugeot, get a Torx and E-Torx set. You can either levers or sockets. I prefer sockets because then they're universal. I can put extensions on them, whatever. So there's an E-Torx down in the handle here on these door cards, which that one strips. I can just rip him straight out of there. There's one on the back here, which I'm using the wrong size. That's why it's not stripped at all. I had this one to get that other thing apart. $30. Torx are always a size bigger than you think. The size below will fit, but it just won't bite firm. And you'll think you got it right up until the point where you strip it. A lot of people don't like Torx. I actually don't mind them. They were designed to produce more torque than a Phillips head, and they do that. Using them in place of a hex head bolt, don't fully agree with. But what actually has made Torx weak is not the Torx design itself. It's the fact that it has a giant radius on the bit and also a huge radius on the fastener to make easy insertion. Get rid of those radius and you'll find that Torx are actually a very, very
strong fastener for very resistant to stripping. So that bad boy comes out of there, like so. You throw it in the bin. This little guy here just unclips. I might need a screwdriver because I don't have fingernails right now, but otherwise just leave it there, it'll pop off. Got that guy in the back. Now there is one in the front which is often missing. In this case it's there, but it's been replaced with a Phillips washer face screw, and it's not even in tight, whatever. Now if these haven't been removed much, they will make a very loud sound and shit will go flying everywhere because there's normally stuff in these pockets that people have forgotten about. There it goes. These tweeter covers just pop off. And as I said, the tweeter's long since been removed, so I don't even need to remove the wiring for it, which is great. Go straight in the fucking bin. And then this will pop off of here, like that, and then up off the door lock. Actually, I forgot the front one. I forgot it. Help! Help! It's up here. Since people don't like Torx, they've often replaced these with something different, i.e. nothing. Got it. All right. Garbage. Ah, it's gone. Phillips on the speaker, which this speaker's heat damage, so it's no spring chicken. Back in the days when cars had aftermarket sized speaker holes in the doors. Those were the days. Oh, this one's got a spacer ring. The other one didn't. Unplug that. Garbage. Fuck you. Peugeot uses good glue. More garbage. Now, these speaker pods are riveted in with big rivets. Playing along at home. You just drill the heads off them. Got to rip the old heads off here. You watch in 20 years, these things will be like a classic, and someone will be watching me doing this going, "Oh my god, I can't believe you're destroying that car." Okay, so if you're removing the speaker, that's how it's done. All right, I'm going to hotwire this window, and then we'll get to work. Some actual work. So I finally got that malarkey out of there, and then this little guy here just, yeah, well, he doesn't do much. He swings off of there. Just why'd you even focus? Just trust me when I say that comes off there. All right, that thing's next. Hopefully it gives me slightly less trouble, and I feel it will because I'm just going to rip the shit out of it. All right, well, you can tell I'm not an extraordinarily clean person. I learnt a few years back while doing a head gasket between finishing work one day and going to work the next. Organisation on a big job is key. If you can take away that hour and a half to 2 hours of looking for the right tool out of your job, it's done an hour and a half to 2 hours quicker. So I got the engine crane out, ready to go here. Zoom you out a little bit. So I still see a lot of people cranking them from this position, but you can actually just undo the screw on the bottom of the jack. You can just lift it. lift it up a little bit higher than you want it. Turn that back again. It stays much faster. Now, sometimes they will sag a little bit because they've got a bit of air in them. So just yank on a little bit, make sure it's good before you start lifting anything. Otherwise, you might get a bit of a nasty surprise. So what's going to happen here, you can clearly see, is I want the engine to go down on the ground and I want the car to go up and over it. So it's not going to happen on this because it's obviously going to hit the legs of the crane, which is not a huge deal. So I'm going to support the engine with the crane, drop the subframe bolts, drop the engine down onto the crane, and then I'll jack it up, prop it up on something, whatever, bricks, pull the crane out a little bit, and then I'm actually going to attach the crane to this lower member here. It's just strong enough to lift the car, and then I'm going to lift the car, and then I was supposed to bring some dollies home from work, and I didn't. I'm going to roll the engine out the front. So I lift the car right up, like above the engine, roll the engine forward. Making that panel there removable would be freaking awesome. Maybe one day. So anyway, you go back on the tripod and do whatever it is you do. Now, the bolts on the subframe are E-Torx. I've already mentioned this. Absolutely get a set. So E-Torx, I think it is this fella here, which is an E16. He's my subframe one, and they're like super long bolts, and my clutch has been leaking. Great. You know what? Remember when I pushed the clutch before? You watched me do that, and you didn't say anything. Nate, if you press that clutch, it's going to pump fluid into your engine bay. And you know what? Oh, look, I got it. Oh, my God, that is so fantastic. That was the exact socket that I needed. Ugh. My awesomeness has excused your lack of pointing out my stupidity. All right, I am ready to go with this. So I'm going to support this engine. Number of things you can do. Obviously, chains and D-shackles work great. This engine actually has 2 lift points on it, which balance it pretty well. You can also use ratchet straps if you've got, preferably not the ones with the hooks, preferably the actual truck ones that hook into themselves properly. Work great. Alternatively, if you don't have any of that malarkey, and if you are destroying a car like I am, seatbelts. Seatbelts work great. Cut the seatbelt, tie it in a knot. It's strong as, and the knot will never, ever, ever come undone, and you will have to cut it. And apparently, I don't have one. If you're planning on keeping one seatbelt for the rest of your life, get a lighter, melt them, stops them from fraying. So that's the gearbox side engine mount. It's just a big shaft on the gearbox, goes up in here with a single nut on top of it, and then it slides down from the bottom just to make things easier. It's only held in with these two little bolts. Take it off so you've got a lot more space. Also a good tip too, if you're changing the timing chain, is to do this as well. Take this out, undo that top engine mount. You can pull the engine over without anything sort of hindering you much. You can pull the engine away like that and get a bit more clearance in here, because it's very, very tight in there. Even trying to get the engine cover bolts out, like there's a couple of bolts in the inside here which are Torx again, and you can't even get a tool in there to do them. So engine is now completely being supported by the engine crane. Coolant is leaking everywhere. Throw down one of these sheets. What do I do for rags? I don't know if it's still a thing anymore. These are very, very old. This is going to commercial laundries. There's a few of them around the place. And they actually, when they get rid of old bed sheets, towels, etc., they sell them off as rags, and they're actually pretty good. Obviously, the towels are toweling material. I usually get the bed sheets or tablecloths and just hack them up into rags. So you'll see me using white rags a lot. A lot of them I haven't cut down. I've just used them as bed sheets. I think I used to pay like 50 cents each for them or whatever. So you can get a big bag for like 20 bucks. Last few years. So I don't know what I'm going to show you of what happened there. It's about 40 minutes worth of straight up footage. So I thought it would have dropped a bit easier than it did. But anyway, wasn't without casualties. I pulled the drive shaft out of the gearbox and leaked some oil on the ground. So lost a good 50-cent rag, which might be able to save some of it, but whatever. I'm going to throw that on that gearbox oil, let that absorb overnight. That joint, I hadn't uncoupled it properly, so it pulled the steering shaft through the floor. There's another coupler up under the dash, it's probably pulled that, which is less than ideal, but the steering rack, like these boots are shot anyway. My other steering rack has brand new tie rod ends and stuff on it, so when I drop the other subframe, like this subframe and engine is probably not the one I'm using anyway, so I wasn't overly concerned about it. But managed to get it out of here without actually forgetting anything. Didn't test the strength of anything. It dropped down quite nice. So that's now sitting on the crane legs. As I said, I couldn't drop it on the floor because that's where the crane works. So I'll lift it up a little bit, sit it on some blocks or whatever, or just put it on the jack for the time being, slide the crane out, hook up to the front, move the crane around to the side, lift the car up, roll the engine out. Engine goes off the subframe, goes onto a stand. Gearbox gets shoved in the corner for another day. Subframe, I'm going to slot the subframe on this one. I've got a subframe outside which I was going to use, but I prefer to use this one here. So you've got, these are an interesting controller. They're just a boomerang made out of, I don't know, the heaviest steel on earth because they weigh a ton. There's a lower ball joint there which holds the knuckle, which then is part of the strut. And then there's a bush here and a bush back there. So that's actually the end of it that you can see sticking out there. And that is the top of the bolt there, bottom of the bolt underneath, obviously, and there's another bolt just in there. So there's no adjustment in these. You can't change the camber or caster or anything. They're just a fixed geometry thing. So the only way that you can change the camber or anything is obviously with camber plates. You can pull the top of the strut in, which leans the knuckle over, which gives you up to about 2.5 degrees. If you want to go any further than that, you've either got to re-drill these holes. You can drill them in a little bit further, but then obviously you keep pulling the knuckle over, drive shaft runs out of plunge. So when you full lock and a bit of compression of it pushes the engine over because the drive shaft needs to be shortened. So I slot those holes in here and reinforce the subframe and use a camber bolt so I can push the arm back out a little bit to get that last little bit of camber that I want. So that subframe will go aside until I get a chance to do that. And then I'm just going to roll my whole other assembly in, jack it up into place, go from there.